good? Better you than me. Got it? Good. Call the meeting to order. The Planning and Zoning Commission holds public hearings as required by law and provides recommendations to City Council on matters relating to land use planning, zoning, and the subdivisions of land. Any person who has an interest in the subject matter of a hearing will have the opportunity to provide testimony and present evidence to the commission during the public hearing. We're going to have two public hearings tonight. Speakers are required to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful manner. Disruptive behavior, including applause, yelling, speaking out of turn, or other inappropriate behaviors will not be tolerated. All communication should be directed to the commission as opposed to other people in the audience. Additionally, the following applies to any person addressing the commission. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless authorized additional time by the chairperson. Speakers must speak at the podium unless previous arrangements have been made by the chairperson. Speakers must legibly print their name and address on the sign-in sheet at the podium prior to speaking. Speakers must begin by stating their name and address, and speakers must speak clearly and into the microphone. And I will state to you that just because you got a microphone there doesn't mean that we can hear you, because it has better speakers in the back than it does in the front. So I'm kind of hard of hearing. If you want me to hear, you may have to project a little bit to get that message up here. The chairperson will announce the subject of the hearing, followed by a report from staff. The chairperson will then open the public hearing to the applicant, followed by those in favor of the application and those opposed to the application. The chairperson will close the public hearing during this time. The commission will discuss amongst themselves. The public may not address the commission after the close of the public hearing unless requested by the chairperson. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall base their recommendation and/or decision on information and evidence presented during the public hearing. This decision, if required by the application, will be forwarded in writing to City Council for further consideration. I want to say before we go, we have a little bit of, if you've got the agenda, we have just a little bit of opening business before we get to the first hearing. I need to tell you, and some of you may be here for the first hearing, which is RE Rezone 19-001 P&E Investments, which is asking for a rezone of 131.45 acres located at 6200 block of West Farm Road 148 from agricultural to heavy industrial M2. That application has been withdrawn, so there will not be a hearing on that matter tonight. If you're here to give testimony, I'm not going to call it, and we're not going to hear anything because we're not going to make a decision on it because it's been withdrawn. We will have two other hearings tonight, and then we have two developments to look at for possible vote to recommend approval of application for preliminary plat. Garrett, is there anything else you want to add at this point?
Yeah, if there is anybody here that was interested in listening to or participating in the public hearing for that 130 acres located along West Farm Road 148, just west of the Burlington Northern Railroad track there. If there is, that application has been withdrawn, so the consideration is effectively canceled. If there is another application or anything changes, you will receive the same notice that you received for this meeting. You'll receive another notice if there is something else in the future that happens. So I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that, oh, it's withdrawn for tonight, but it's going to show up next month or anything like that. If it's going to show up for any sort of public hearing again, you'll get notice again. But for now, the application's withdrawn, so it will go no further.
We're We're going into our meeting at this point then. The first item of business for us is the approval of the agenda. Any changes or items that need to be discussed on that? Otherwise, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Tony. Do you hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this meeting. Call the roll, please, Connie.
Eric Pedersen.
Aye.
Brandon Andrews.
Aye.
Kevin Hahn.
Aye.
Cynthia Hyder.
Aye.
Ransom Ellis.
Aye.
Tony Mitchell.
Aye.
All right. Next item of business is the approval of minutes of the P&Z Commission meeting, June 10, 2019. Any additions or subtractions to that or discussion that needs to be had? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
I'll motion. Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Call the roll, please.
Ransom Ellis.
Aye.
Cynthia Hyder.
Aye.
Kevin Hahn.
Aye.
Brandon Andrews.
Aye.
Tony Mitchell.
Aye.
Eric Pedersen.
Aye.
Fourth item of business I've already taken care of. We're to the first public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm calling rezone or REZN 19-002, 3455 East Benton. Public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 1.31 acres located at 3455 East Benton from general commercial C2 to medium-density, single-family residential R1N.
Thank you, Chairman. The property subject to the rezoning application for this first public hearing, again, is 1.31 acres of land located 3455 East Benton in Brookline. This is a vicinity map showing the location of the subject parcel in relation to State Highway MM here, and this is the railroad here. A single-family residential structure and two accessory structures and a carport are currently located on the property. This second map is the zoning map. The parcel again is right here in the dashed purple lines. You'll see the surrounding properties are in yellow. Those are all zoned medium-density, single-family residential. The properties a little bit further south in green are zoned agricultural, and then we do have a property right here that is also zoned general commercial or C2. And finally, I will come back to this map, but this is the future land use map that we refer to. And several site photos showing the existing structures on the parcel. The main structure here to the left of the photo is the house, and then the one in the background is one of the two accessory structures. For discussion and analysis, again, the subject property is out in Brookline on Benton Street. The current zoning of the property is general commercial. The applicants are requesting a rezoning to medium-density, single-family residential. That flume designation map that I just brought up on the screen shows that the property does have a multifamily residential or R3 future land use designation, and what that designation would allow would be for development of residential dwellings of 8 dwellings per acre or more. Several permitted uses within the medium-density single-family residential zoning district. Of course, we do allow the single-family dwellings, we allow residential accessory structures, and then other uses such as golf courses, public parks, playgrounds, and schools. For consistency with the comprehensive plan is the first part of our analysis. The comprehensive plan does generally encourage the expansion of residential development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Again, appropriate locations are described as in regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure that is currently available to support the various intensities and densities of uses. Another goal of the comprehensive plan, we encourage the maintenance and improvement of existing housing, and we are promoting the stabilization of existing neighborhoods. One objective within this area is to address housing maintenance and redevelopment to prevent deterioration of existing neighborhoods and to encourage the community to reinvest in these already developed areas. For compatibility with surrounding land uses, as I indicated on the zoning map, north, south, east, and west, all of the surrounding and adjacent properties are currently zoned medium-density single-family residential, and they are being used in a residential fashion. Our further analysis for our capacities to serve this potential development, the parcel is currently served by a private well and septic system, but City of Republic water and sanitary sewer services are available. The site is in proximity to an 8-inch water main having the capacity to serve the use of a single-family dwelling. The site is also in proximity to an 8-inch gravity sanitary sewer main. This main flows to the McElhaney and Schuler Creek lift stations before being pumped back to the wastewater treatment facility. And this lift station and the treatment facility do have the capacity to serve a potential residential use. As far as transportation, the subject property does currently have 2 residential driveways, one serving the existing residential dwelling on East Benton, and the other serving an existing residential accessory structure on North York. Staff does not anticipate any impact to the city's transportation networks with this rezoning request. For floodplain, the property contains no areas identified by special flood hazard areas, and also no identified sinkholes on this particular property. Alternative uses as presently zoned, the property is not currently utilized as a commercial property. It could be redeveloped and utilized for any of the permitted uses within the general commercial zoning district upon approval of a commercial development permit. There has been no substantial redevelopment or infill development in this primarily residential area of Brookline in many years. And finally, for staff recommendation, staff does consider the proposed zoning map amendment or rezoning to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the site, compatible with surrounding land uses, and we are able to serve the property with municipal services. So based upon this analysis, staff is recommending the approval of the rezoning request. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Thank you, Karen. We will hear from the applicant or anyone in favor of the application. Anyone wish to come forward and speak in favor of the application? Okay, no one coming forward. We'll hear from anyone who's opposed to the application. We're not that scary. Okay, no one coming forward. I'll close the hearing. Move to the next hearing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. All right, let's discuss. Thank you. Keep me on track. Any questions on this by anybody? Pretty straightforward.
It's the old Carter Excavating. It's who used to be there. They haven't been in service for years. In fact, I drove by there. That building probably needs to be taken out anyway, so. Can't think of any reason.
Pretty straightforward.
All right.
Are they knocking down the building? Knocking down those buildings, or?
No, I believe the applicants have submitted a residential remodel permit, so pending an outcome, a positive outcome on the rezoning, they'll pick up that permit and then do some work on that particular structure to make it ready for a residential occupancy.
Any other questions? I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Our motion and a second to recommend approval of the application to change the zoning classification of approximately 1.31 acres located at 3455 East Benton from general commercial C2 to medium density, single-family residential R1M. Call the roll, please, Connie.
Eric Pedersen,
Aye.
Kevin Hahn,
Aye.
Cynthia Hyder,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
Brendan Andrews,
Aye.
Ransom Ellis.
Aye. We will recommend approval. Closing that meeting out, we go to the next second hearing, SPCL 19-001, Dynamic Strides Aquatic and Therapy Center. Public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of a special use permit amendment to ordinance 16-19, section 2.B, increasing the maximum building square footage for Dynamic Strides, a farm-based aquatic and therapy center located at 2673 East Sawyer Road. Karen?
Thank you. As the chairman indicated, this is a special use permit amendment request. The map you see in front of you is the vicinity map. This shows the location, the actual 80-acre parcel in the dash lines here on East Sawyer Road. This is home to what is now Dynamic Strides Therapy Center. And you'll see the structure itself for Dynamic Strides is right here down on East Sawyer Road. And then I've also included a zoning map. This shows the zoning in the vicinity. We have some industrial uses across the street, and then the remainder of the property is a PDD. And then also some site photos indicating the current conditions of the property. So these are the two existing structures. And East Sawyer Road. So the applicant is requesting an amendment to the special use permit that was issued in 2016 for a farm-based therapy clinic known as Dynamic Strides on East Sawyer Road. The amendment would potentially allow for an increase in the maximum allowable building square footage from 30,000 square feet to 31,500 square feet. The request is necessitated by a condition on the ordinance that approved the 2016 special use permit, permitting a maximum building floor area of 30,000 square feet. I've included in your packet, and you'll see before you on the screen, this is a conceptual rendering of a potential increase in the existing building square footage. So this area would be the proposed increase to the existing building, which is outlined here. And then I've also included the conceptual drawing that shows additional details regarding potentially what would be housed in the addition, which does include a multi-purpose room, a swimming pool, lockers, and restrooms, also some offices and treatment facilities. Again, the permit would allow for an expansion approximately of 7,200 square feet to the existing structure. The total square footage, if approved, will be right at that 31,500. And finally, staff has reviewed the amendment application, and we are recommending the approval of the special use permit, increasing the maximum building square footage to 31,500. All other conditions of the previously approved special use permit will remain in effect. I did include in your packet a copy of that approved ordinance, which does outline all of the other conditions which were originally approved with that permit. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Karen? How long ago was it that we originally addressed this?
It was approved by City Council in October of 2016.
Questions?
Is this for people or is this for
Sorry?
farming?
No, the Dynamic Strides facility is a farm-based therapy clinic for children with special needs.
Okay.
So they have treatment facility rooms, they have a sensory gym, and they also have like an indoor arena where they do therapy with horses.
Nice program. All right. Anyone in favor of the application? Wish to speak?
My name is Rufus Louderback. My address is 1801 West Riverdale Drive, Houston, Missouri, 657. I'm the architect on the original facility, and they hired me a separate firm to do this addition. I've also donated lots of time and funds for the facility, and my daughter actually volunteers there 3 times a week. So what they never imagined almost 3 years ago was an expansion. Karen had asked me at one point in time, let's bump this up more, what are they gonna do? And I've tried to push for them, what kind of number, what kind of square footage. The 30,000 square foot was just kind of someone threw out a number 3 years ago. So we tried to do the addition and try to get it within the 30, and it just didn't make sense. So I asked the director of Radio Riley if she would go through this process. We were just a few hundred feet short in reality. We've asked for a little bit more than we need. I don't think we'll be quite at 31.5 when it's all said and done. But she said, absolutely, we don't want to, we're doing this the best that we can. They're running out of treatment rooms. They do what they call HIPAA therapy, which is with the equine. And they do the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And they have therapists for all of those positions. Right now, they're using a pool on Republic Road to offer this type of therapy. And so they're in great need. They've already hired a therapist that does specifically aquatic therapy. So they're ready to roll with it. They need the treatment rooms, they need the pool, and they need this expansion of square footage. So that's the
I don't want to stir the pot, but why'd you just ask for 31.5?
Well, that was the thing.
You're gonna get yourself in the same boat
We
again.
could throw out a random number, and who knows what may come up down the road, and we'd still be back here. So we thought 30,000 originally. The existing facility, I believe, is right around 24,000 feet. And they thought, we'll never expand. And here
It's a
we are
nice program.
expanding. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to the application? Seeing no one, close it out. What discussion do y'all have?
So it's a special use permit, so what was it before, whenever they first built it? Did they have a special use permit to build a building, or how'd that work
I
out?
believe in the very beginning, prior to obtaining the special use permit, that there was a riding arena, and there is a single-family structure there, so it was a farm before.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that program started really as HIPAA therapy and then went from there. They expanded out their programming. All right, here, motion,
Motion
okay, to approve.
to approve, yes. Sorry, my first one.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second on the recommendation to approve a special use permit amendment to ordinance 16-19, section 2.b, increasing the maximum building square footage for Dynamic Strides, a farm-based aquatic and therapy center located at 2673 East Sawyer Road. And the increase is to 31,500 square feet. Call the roll, please.
Ransom Ellis,
Aye.
Kevin Hahn,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
Cynthia Hyder,
Aye.
Brandon Andrews,
Aye.
Eric Peterson,
Carries. Thank you very much.
See you in 3 years.
Very positive. I remember when we originally did that one. Okay, next order of business is SUBD 19-010 Forest Lake Estates. Possible vote to recommend the approval of an application for a preliminary plat for Forest Lake Estates, a residential subdivision of 20.25 acres, consisting of 48 lots located at the 500 block of South Forest Lane. Karen?
Thank you. We'll start with the vicinity map showing the location of the acreage in question tonight. The railroad is right here, and then you'll see South Forest Lane kind of wraps around along Egan here. And then also the zoning map showing the vicinity of the property. The subject property is zoned medium-density, single-family residential. And you'll see all of the adjacent properties in yellow are also zoned single-family residential. So Blake and Ashley Cantrell have requested the review and approval of a preliminary plat, which you have in front of you tonight, of 20.25 acres. It does consist of 48 residential lots, zoned medium-density, single-family residential. It also includes stormwater detention, streets, infrastructure, and also access to South Forest Lane. The preliminary plat is in front of you. It's been included in your packet, and then also I'll show you a few elements on the big screen. So the subject property is the triangular shape here. There are 2 access points which they are proposing to South Forest Lane. There'll be 2 new streets and then 2 cul-de-sacs towards the south. So we'll have residential lots wrapping around those streets, both on the inside and the outside. The portion of the property to the east here is going to be a stormwater detention basin and also overflow basin here. If you ever looked at any of our mapping systems before, it did show that there was a large, or rather large, sinkhole at this location. A geologist has produced a report indicating that that area that was previously believed to be a sinkhole is indeed not a sinkhole. So the sinkhole has been removed from the map, and this area is suitable for stormwater drainage. Just very quickly, I'll go over the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Again, these are medium-density, single-family residential lots. That zoning designation requires a minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet. The preliminary plat for Forest Lane contains lots ranging from 9,000 square feet to just over 32,600 square feet. The preliminary plat proposes two new local street connections to South Forest Lane, approximately 200 feet apart. So that would be these 2 connections here. The new public street will serve all lots within the subdivision. No lots are going to be accessible directly to South Forest Lane. And the construction of the development will include approximately 2,000 feet of street and sidewalk, which will be dedicated to the city during the final plating process. The City of Republic, let me go. The City of Republic water and sewer is available at the reference property. The preliminary plat indicates a connection to the 10-inch water main located on West O'Neill Road and the railroad tracks, and the 6-inch water main running parallel to South Forest Lane, creating a looped water system that is required by the subdivision ordinance. This looping of the system will also produce the 1,500 gallons per minute required for residential subdivisions. As far as the sanitary sewer connection, it'll connect to an 8-inch gravity sanitary sewer main running along South Forest Lane. It actually flows directly to the wastewater treatment facility, and the plant does have capacity. So let me show you just really quickly on the map. The first water main connection that I was speaking of on West O'Neill down here by the railroad, this will be a 10-inch connection to a point down here. And then it'll loop through this proposed subdivision and connect to a water main on South Forest Lane. And then the sanitary sewer connection that I had just referred to, the gravity, 8-inch gravity main, is running along South Forest Lane here. And then it does flow from here directly to the wastewater treatment facility. And we did take a couple of site photos. So right now the site is just a field. And you'll notice here, this is actually the railroad, just for a frame of reference back here. We also evaluated the proposal regarding the transportation plan. The proposal does include the 2 new local street connections to South Forest Lane. The new public street connection will serve all of the lots, as I indicated, and does include that street and sidewalk. And then finally, as far as floodplain, there are no special flood hazard areas indicated on the subject property. It does not contain any sinkholes. And then the stormwater design does include a detention area of approximately 5.9 acres. It is designed to control the release of the stormwater attributable from the development, and then the stormwater detention area will be maintained by the homeowners association. So back to the preliminary plat. The entire area shaded in blue will be either common area, stormwater overflow, or stormwater detention, and this entire area will be maintained by a homeowners association. And staff has reviewed the proposed preliminary plat, and it is in general conformity with the requirements for preliminary plats, and we are recommending the approval of the application. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Motions?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Recommend approval. Here, second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend the approval of an application for a preliminary plat for Forest Lake Estates, a residential subdivision of 20.25 acres consisting of 48 lots located at the 500 block of South Forest Lane. Call the roll, please. Connie?
Brandon Andrews,
Aye.
Kevin Hahn,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
Ransom Pellis,
Sorry. Aye.
Cynthia Hyder,
Aye.
Eric Pedersen.
Approved. item of business, the SUBD 19-009, Empty Farms, possible vote to recommend the approval of an application for a preliminary plat for Highway 60 Business Center located at 3456 South Farm Road 101, a commercial subdivision consisting of 62.57 acres and 4 lots in Phase 1. So,
As I'm sure you all recall, we considered this at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and the commission voted against recommending approval. So it did proceed to the city council, where the applicant asked for this to be remanded back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that in the meantime, before P&Z considers it again, they will work to correct all of the deficiencies that had been identified with that preliminary plat. So as of this particular commission meeting, they're not prepared to present those corrections. So they've requested, rather than considering it again this evening, that this be tabled until the August Planning and Zoning Commission.
questions? Motion?
So they have like the memo, you have like the recommended things to fix? Are they progressing on any of those things, or?
I received a call this afternoon from Tyler McConnell, who did indicate he is working with their surveyors to correct the deficiencies identified in the memos.
Is this still all hinged on MoDOT?
A big portion of the subsequent preliminary plat will have to include some transportation type improvements.
If it comes back, if we table it and it comes back, we find out what they've got, decide on the basis of that at that time.
So say they worked on the majority of those issues and say we approved it, would it like make MoDOT try to do something, or can they still say no or whatever?
Well, the last version of the preliminary plat, MoDOT had reviewed just a right-in, right-out from US Highway 60. They had essentially approved a relocation of a deeded access point to that particular type of access to a new public street. So if we receive a new preliminary plat, we will certainly send that back to MoDOT for their review and any comments they may have. And we of course will review it as far as that new public street intersection, where MoDOT's right-of-way ends at the right-in, right-out. Our public street connection would start, so we would need the approval of a public street intersection with US Highway 60.
To answer your question, no. If we approve a preliminary plat, it doesn't force MoDOT's hand to do anything. Likewise, them saying, oh, we're okay with something, doesn't force you into approving a preliminary plat. So,
Everybody has to play their cards.
right, it's best to work together and coordinate those decisions, but one doesn't necessarily force the other agency to do anything.
There's no need talking about it now, because the status of this matter is that it's not been approved. And so it's up to the applicant, at least at this point, as I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we table it, they can come back. If they, if they don't come back, they don't come back. Nothing happens.
I would like to motion to table.
Second.
Table until the next meeting.
Table it until after the August planning and
Do-
zoning meeting. Sorry.
Ask Scott, do we put a time limit on that?
We should. We should always affix a time so we don't lose track of it or
Yeah,
table it when-
they don't come back 6 years from now, 10 years.
Still tabling it.
Oh, yeah, remember? What's a reasonable time, legal?
I would say move it to the next meeting. That way it's on that meeting. If they still don't want to proceed at that point, we can let the commissioners know.
Good with that. So when's the next meeting? All right. Would that amend your motion?
I'd like the motion to table it to August 12th with the planning and zoning.
Plan, good.
Second again.
Your second, still good? One of you? Whoever
I'll
said
take
it first.
You'll get this one.
Which one of you took it?
I'll take it.
I have a motion to table SUBD 19-009 Empty Farms until, to table the possible vote to recommend the approval of an application for preliminary plat. In that case, to August 12th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Call the roll, please.
Cynthia Hyder,
Aye.
Eric Pedersen,
Aye.
Ransom Ellis,
Aye.
Brandon Andrews,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
Kevin Han.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is citizen participation. Anyone in the audience who wishes to come and address us on an issue, can feel free to come and do that now. Never get many takers on that. Ever since Betty doesn't come anymore. When Betty was here, she'd always come and talk to us. Community Development Department update.
So, Republic continues to grow at a fairly steady pace. Year to date, we've issued, I believe it's 84 new single-family residential building permits. We've issued several hundred building permits of all kinds, but those include, plumbing permits, accessory building permits, et cetera. With regard to pace in comparison to prior years, it's really similar to what we experienced last year so far. So a lot of relatively fast residential growth through the first half of the year. That then last year it tailed off for the last two quarters. And so last year at this point we were at about, I think, 73 single-family permits. Now we're at 84. And we ended the year a little over 100. So we could be on that same pace, or we could be on a pace to exceed last year. Regardless, I think the pace is a healthy pace. It's a relatively fast pace, although nowhere near what the growth rate was back in 05 and 06 and 07 when we were issuing 200 and 300 single-family building permits per year. The lot inventory continues to sort of try to catch up to demand, which is, I think, a healthy place to be right now. Our lot inventory continues to hover at a few hundred lots or slightly less, which sort of the conventional wisdom there is you want to have a couple years worth of your permit growth in inventory to maintain adequate supply to meet sort of the regular demand. So although if you are on the demand side of that and you're frustrated by the lack of supply, that's not great, but it's better than holding on to some excess supply for which there is no demand. So that's why I say it's, relatively speaking, it's a healthy position. I don't think we're growing too fast or we're facing some sort of problematic situation like we were in back in 08 and 09 and 2010, where we had all this excess supply and no demand for it, and price is out of whack. So I think it's a good position. Commercial building continues at a steady pace as well. And I'll just, if you don't mind, go ahead and transition into the comprehensive plan update. So where we're at on the comprehensive plan right now is we are reaching some conclusions with regard to sort of future plans for the physical city. I like to, there's, in my mind, there's two city of republics. There's a city of republic that is people, and then there's a physical city. And so what we're planning here is the physical city. And so we've now reached some decision points on water and wastewater, and a lot of those surround some further questions about geographic direction. Which direction is growth going to happen? And I think, like we've talked about here before, there's just so much infill potential in Republic that it makes it difficult to point in one direction because there's just so much that's already inside the corporate limits. But we'll be making some of those decisions soon. But where we're at right now, logistically, is trying to bring together these parts to synthesize them, to sort of bring them into harmony so that we can look at them all together in order to make some of these decisions about how we're going to prioritize based on our funding constraints, and then start to plan some capital improvements for what are we going to actually begin to start investing our money into to facilitate that growth. So that's what you'll probably be hearing about most upcoming is here's what we see the city needing over the next 20 years, and here's our process for how we're going to begin to lay that out spatially or geographically. What you won't see is sort of what I think everybody's first impulse is to go ahead and just lay all that out now. Because like I said, to make those determinations now, I think, in my opinion, would be somewhat irresponsible. We've got to make some decisions now, but to go ahead and say, oh, in 20 years, it's definitely going to be right here, when we don't really need to make that decision now is not the direction to go. So instead, what you'll be hearing about is, here's what we forecast the demands to be, and here's how we're going to approach making those decisions in sort of an incremental fashion. So that's where we're at. So you can look forward to seeing lots of diagrams and numbers and figures as we move closer to that. But like I said, the important thing now is to begin to take all of this data we collected and synthesize it. What we don't want to do is, in essence, repeat history. So if you are familiar with the expansion that occurred to consolidate with the former village of Brookline, that was a major risk, sort of a gamble, if you will, that just didn't pay off. I was talking to one of our staff members who likes to play poker, and I was trying to build this analogy. I don't play poker, but if you do, he said it's like you take a bad beat. I guess that's where you lose a big hand that you thought you were going to win. In some ways, the expansion into the former Brookline Republic took a bad beat. I said, well, when you take a bad beat, what's your strategy? How do you respond to taking a bad beat? He said, well, the last thing you want to do is change your strategy. You don't want to react to that and then apparently call that going on tilt, right? So you react to that because you just took a big loss and you start to play loose and fast with everything. That's what we don't want to do. So we've sort of taken a bad beat on the Brookline expansion. What we don't want to do is go out there and say, oh, now we're going to fix it by playing even riskier. Instead, I think we want to stick with a very methodical approach to how we are going to turn what right now is sort of costing us into something that will actually be very productive for the community in the long run. I think the way to do that is to play the hand we're dealt, not the hand we wish we had been dealt, and to do it in a very sort of slow and methodical way where one strategic win at a time will sort of turn that situation over again. So that's what the discussion will be moving forward, and any other thoughts and perspectives, especially from the commission, we welcome those at any time. And anytime anybody here wants to come into the office and look further into some of what I'm talking about, and actually see some of those maps and look at some of that data, you're welcome to do that as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Garrett. Next item of business is, did you do the comprehensive plan too? Oh, 8 and 9 together. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Tony, all roll, please.
Kevin Hahn,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.